Hello, everyone. We're just waiting for all the attendees to drop in. Thank you for joining us. I'll just give a few moments for them to come in. So thank you for joining us midweek for this Learning Network webinar with Frank from AIUVR. This is, I think, we've had some great sessions with yourself and your colleagues in the past. It's always really interesting to see how these technologies are being used. So just as you're joining, please jump into the chat. Let us know where you're joining from. And maybe, if you've got like a burning thing that you want to know about this technology, start dropping it in the chat now. So you might be able to come back to it at some point, or it might be addressed during the session. As always, these recordings will be available via the Learning Network members dashboard. That usually happens within about 48 hours of the webinar. That will be available for members forevermore. So please do take advantage of that recording being available. Also, just a quick heads up from a Learning Network perspective, do check out the events page on the site. We have more webinars coming up and our last couple of in-person events, including the World of Learning Social and, of course, our conference Connect in November, at which we would love to see more of you there. But without further ado, because I'm very aware that you are not here to listen to me rabbit on about the Learning Network, let me hand over to our guest speaker for today, Frank. Thanks for joining us, and over to you.
Thank you, Tom, and hi everyone. So today we're going to spend some time talking how these extended reality and spatial learning or spatial computing it's used in the L&D market. So because some of you are kind of at the beginning of the journey, some of you are more advanced, I'm going to kind of talk about all the different elements. So maybe some things you already know, you're aware of, but hopefully, some other things maybe it's going to be new for you. So it's going to be not too technical, because we don't want to go too much into the technical part of it. But if you want and you got any technical questions, as Tom said, feel free to drop any questions, which then I can take at the end of this half an hour, right? So as the title here says, extended reality, spatial computing. But before we go into it, what are they, right? So again, just for make sure that everyone are on the same page, when we talk about extended reality or XR, we talk about a number of technologies. So we talk about virtual reality, which is an immersive experience. Everything is completely digital inside a VR headsets. We talk about AR, so augmented reality, where you got this digital content overlay your physical space. And then the third technology is mixed reality or spatial computing, which is basically the convergence, if you wish, of those two technologies. All of those three technologies sits under the umbrella term, which is called extended reality. So today, when we talk about XR, it's either one of these technology or the combination of those technologies. Last week, LPI did their annual conference. I don't know if some of you attended. And one of the things that it's a couple of days conference and talking about hot topics on the L&D. But one of the things that they've done is they do research asking head of learning and development in an enterprise, what are the challenges that they're facing? So the top 5 challenges that L&D in an enterprise today they're facing, accordingly to them, it's integrating AI and technology, measuring impact and ROI, improving learning engagement, leadership development, and diversity and inclusion. This is the first year of this whole kind of research that integrating technology and with, specifically also with the AI, it's the first time that actually comes and shows in the top 5 challenges. So there is a hot topic. I mean, this is potentially why you are here, because there are new technologies coming into the market, such as XR, AI, and other technologies that are proving such an enormous benefits in the L&D that nobody can avoid anymore. But at the same time, even last week, Fosway, which you may know, released their digital learning realities research, and they found out that this year, the priority in enterprise is not anymore compliance and regulatory in L&D. It's actually upskilling and reskilling those people. So that is the top priority in companies, to upskill and reskill the existing employees, as well as career development. Why is that? Well, because now we got new technology. So we needed to move on. We needed to upskill, and we needed to reskill, our skills in order now to keep up with the pace of our job. We cannot hide, or we cannot close our eyes anymore. So this is a big agenda. And if you think about what AI is providing to companies in terms of budget, they're saying that AI will reduce their spends by 12, like a great deal, 12%, or even they will reduce their spend by 35. Now, this is just the beginning. So if on the first year, let's say, or first 2 years, AI will have such a strong impact on resources and spend, can you imagine what is going to happen in the next 5 years? And again, I'm not trying to say here that AI will take our jobs. But what I'm saying here, AI will do some of our activities. And therefore, what we're going to do with that free time? We need to upskill ourselves. We cannot simply say, oh, this doesn't work, because it's coming. AI, what we have got right now in terms of AI technology or XR technology is just the beginning. We haven't reached the full potential of this technology. So in 5 years' time, it's going to be a completely mind-blowing, essentially. So the reason why we are here is to talk about this tremendous shift that is happening into the L&D. But before we can talk about that, we need to understand why this is happening. Well, this is happening because more and more companies are asking L&D people to actually to do more with less. And when I mean less, I mean less people, less resources, less time. So there is a fundamental here pressure that the business is putting into L&D to do more, but with less. How are we going to do that? Well, the only reason to do more with less money, less resources, and less time is to use technology. But to use technology, we need to be upskilled. We need to have a budget to implement the technology. We need to have time to learn the technology. So it's kind of, that is where we sit nowadays. But we talk about AI, XR, but where we come from, we needed to understand our history to get better tomorrow. So in L&D, all the training, 13,000 BC, happened in graves, right? So that's where our ancient doing a PowerPoint to transfer the knowledge between generation. But kidding aside, if we get closer to our age, we see that on the 90s, on the 70s, all the training was classroom based, and they used the slides to do that, to do training. And then on 20s, the majority of training from classrooms moved into remote, and from slides, it became e-learning. And that's what we got. But look at look here at the time here. So we are in 2024. It's 24 years that we use this technology. It's time to upskill ourselves and open up to other technologies, because this technology that we currently have today, based on some research, which is online e-learning, based on some research from Fosway, is not working. In fact, as you can see, Fosway found out that employees will have much more impact. They get much more impact from their training only when it's done face-to-face and not e-learning. So here we got a problem because companies here on the left are pushing e-learning because they're cost effective, because it's 24 years that we do that. We got to so many authoring tools. It's easy. Have a tick in the box into compliance. But the reality, if you look on the right, trainees says, I'm sorry, doesn't work. It's not such a great impact on our job. Even if we come up with gamified, micro-learning, we can use all that words that has been around for more than 10 years anyway. So what we are realizing here, we are from L&D community. We needed to realize that what we got, it's not enough anymore. We got a new generation that is coming into the jobs. And that generation's born with TikTok, that generation born with new media, new way of content consumptions that doesn't fit with the current content that we create in corporates. So this is why we needed to shift from the kind of model, classic model of blended learning, which is a combination of classroom and digital content, into blended learning 3.0, where we add XR content, which we're going to see later today, provide benefits that no other technology can provide you with. I'm going to prove you today. I'm going to show you who is using it and what are the benefits of this. But as I said here, XR content are not a replacing of e-learning or face-to-face. It's an enhancement. So you needed to realize that with XR, you bring to life experiential learning. And experiential learning is not just about watching or thinking about that topic. It's actually practicing, doing the job. Whatever job it is, it can be an operational work, but also it can be a soft skills job, right? Think about practicing customer services, managing a difficult conversation, negotiation skills, presentation skills, you name it. And with XR, you got a sense of feeling because you're not watching it through this screen anymore. You are actually inside the topic because you got this presence, physical presence inside the content because you are immersed in this XR environment. The power that you got from a psychologist point of view, it's tremendous. And here, I'm going to show you some numbers. So the numbers that you're going to see here are some of the benefits that this technology has provided to training, to L&D enterprises. And these numbers here comes from not my research. It comes from our research, of course, but also come from independent bodies such as Meta, Accenture, PwC. The first benefit, it's content retention. So how much I will remember that specific topic after X period of time. So we all know here, and here there are some researchers, like the Accenture one, that they said that 70% of the content are lost after 24 hours. And 90% of the content for that training is lost. So people don't remember 90% of the content after 1 month. Can you imagine that? So you have done an health and safety training, but after 1 month, guess what? They forgot to don't put the finger over there, otherwise they get chopped, right? So what's the point to do an health and safety or compliance if then after 1 month people forget it? So this is where XR can add value and can improve the retention to 75%. So people will not remember just the 10% of the content, they will remember 75% of the content. So the retention, it's tremendous here that you have got with XR. Improved engagement. People are far more engaged using this technology because they are it's their content, they're part of the content, the whole story, it's personalized to them. So I'm not reading bullet points, or I'm not doing a gamified experience in e-learning where I have to click here and there in order to go to the assessment. People are much more satisfied. It's a consequence of what we are talking about here. And also, we can reduce the time that our trainees spend on training by 40%. Now, specifically on this one, there is a research done for PwC. As you can see here, a specific topic was delivered across a number of channels, classrooms, e-learning, VR. And you can see the difference here, how much time has been saved using VR. But again, we're not replacing classrooms. Maybe there are some topics that still needs the people in a room for 2 hours. But guess what? There are some other topics where actually, instead of getting them 2 hours in a room, you can deliver them in 29 minutes. And while they were doing this, then they found out all sorts of other statistics, such as they were more 300% more confident to apply that skills comparing their peers, essentially, right? So they get confident to do that job over and over again. Other type of benefits, it goes to if I'm more engaged and I learn more and I will remember the content, guess what? I'm gonna make less mistakes because I know what I'm doing. So I can reduce by 45% the mistakes. And if those mistakes are physical mistakes, then you got lots of other benefits, such as saving money, for example, in insurance, for example. Other type of benefits are consequence of everything that we're talking here, as well as improving the performance. And then, of course, I don't need to go to that location. And therefore, I save money and I save carbon emission. Pretty much the same kind of benefits that you can get with e-learning, you can argue. But why we're not using this technology on every day? But because there are some challenges here. Enterprises are struggling to deploy and use XR at large scale because the creation of the content and the consumptions, it's not so easy. In fact, to create the content, you require the special skills. You need to have a special design agency to do that job. You need to spend 6 figures budget to get one single training. And of course, you got 100 of training, you cannot afford it. And the second type of problem is about consumption. How you can think that a company can buy thousands of VR headsets overnight. It will not happen. And then even if you go to those VR headsets, you don't know where your users, your trainees, you cannot guide, moderate them whatsoever. So what we got today, if you want to implement XR in your company, or you want to learn XR, if you are an instructor designer, for example, you wanna become a content creator, the current landscape has got two options. Give you two options. The first option is that you appoint an agency, as I said, 6 figures budget, and they will do a bespoke development for you. The second option, it's actually you buy some of these trainings from a library. Pretty much what we are doing now with e-learning, right? We access to libraries. Of course, today we don't have a huge amount of library available for XR training, but there are some out there. The downside of it, it's that is not personalized. It doesn't talk about your procedures. It doesn't talk about your operational activities. It's just a generic training. But what we have been seeing, what we have seen in the past couple of years, it's the introduction of another segment, which is XR authoring tool. So authoring tool, we all know them, right? Articulate, Adobe Captivate, WordPress, in some extent. Now we have got also no code, drag and drop authoring tool for XR content. So we can speed up the development of this content creation. So the dream here, it's very simple. Can you imagine if every single of you or every single person inside an enterprise can create XR content as today they create a PowerPoint presentation? And all the people consume those XR content from anywhere using any device. This is what is happening today. That kind of dream, it's actually a reality. Because now the content creation, the content consumption is not expensive anymore. It's not complicated. It's not time consuming. It's not hard to manage. It's, the list goes on and on here. We are facing now in the past few years with technology that allow the content creation, the content consumption of XR training as a normal PowerPoint presentation. In fact, as you can see here, in 4 years, the content creation from 5 months has been reduced to 3 days. If you combine GenAI with authoring tool in XR, in 2-3 days, you can create an immersive, extended reality training for your organization. So it's there. There are a number of our authoring tools out there. We are not the only one on this matter. If what you see as well is that the content creator using these authoring tools, it's growing in the next it's growing like 300% here in the next 3 years. So today we get 1 million, but in 3 years we're going to have more than 2 million content creator in XR. So it's coming, it's there. As I said at the beginning of this call, we cannot close our eyes anymore. Otherwise, we miss the train. Or if you want to wait, then you're going to be a really late adopter without competitive advantage, both for your personal development, but also for your company. And these authoring tools, today we talk about RUVR because this is the company that I represent. As I say here, this authoring tool, it's a drag and drop, no code authoring tool where you got millions of assets that you can use for free. And guess what? If you don't find your asset, GenAI, you describe what you want, and the GenAI will create a 360-degree environment or in a matter of minutes. And if you got a 3D object, like this is your product, and you want to do a training on your 3D object, which can be a steam machine, it can be an engine, or whatever, you can scan this in 3D with GenAI using our software. So again, as well as you can import, of course, your own content. So the creation, it's now very simple and very quick, as I said, 2-3 days to do a training. From a content consumption point of view, people can still consume in a synchronous way, like an e-learning today. Today I got 10 minutes, I'm going to do this training in VR. But also, you can do the instructor-led. So you can have multiple people in one single room, a you instructor, you presenter, moderate this experience, this training in VR. You can talk to them, you can do real-time drawing, you can use a laser point, you can chat. It's all there, up and running, easy to use. This, I'm going to skip this. These are kind of advanced technology that we got. And as I said, these old systems are not replacing the current systems. Because again, boy, Frank, do I need to implement another technology, another platform in my corporate? No, because this technology works with the current platforms. It's fully compliant with any LMS, learning experience platform, and LRS, and you name it. So literally, it's there out of the box. You don't need to do any crazy integrations to implement inside your enterprise. Again, this is all kind of, it's fully secure, et cetera, but this is just a snapshot of how this technology is already easy to be linked to your current learning ecosystem of platform that you already got. So everything that you create in this authoring tool, it's already SCORM 1.2, SCORM 2004, XAPI, CMF5 compliant. Out of the box, again. What I can do with that? So what type of training we can do in XR? Well, I would summarize that you can do 90% of all the training. And when I say 90, it's because there is then 10% that maybe XR doesn't apply. It's not the good technology for that training. But if you talk about talent acquisition, onboarding, compliance, soft skills, technical skills, high risk scenario, here we got just a list of, I don't know, 12. You can do that. Not only you can do it, but you will do it far, far better than an e-learning with amazing benefits. So it's very applicable to any sort of training, except some other training, maybe like a soft training. Software training, it's impossible to do that in VR. What's the point? Okay. But where you're going to start, how I'm going to implement this in my organization if I never done this before? Well, the first step is to understand what are the challenges and KPIs that you are trying to solve. Today, you got maybe too much accident into the job, or let's say that your customer service is really poor rating. Whatever problem you have got, you need to identify. And once you have identified that, then, okay, who's going to do this XR training? Do I have people in-house, or do I need to go to an external, again, agency? If I got the people, do I need to upskill those people to do XR? So you set kind of the team, but once you got the team up and running, then you create a pilot, you collect this data out of this pilot, you communicate that you are doing this type of pilot, and then roll out at scale after your pilot. If you are at the beginning of this journey, if you already had experience in VR, maybe you can skip the pilot. But how looks like a pilot, a content creation process? It looks pretty much like this. What is the topic? Health and safety, or working at high, or managing difficult conversation, whatever it is. You identify the topic, then you create the storyboard, how you want to design the whole XR experience. You go into production, so using Gen AI, or again, doing your own tools, etc., etc. Then you launch the pilot and collect data. This is pretty much how it works, a classic pilot. You also need to consider that maybe this technology you want to use using the VR headsets because you got the best experience. Because this technology can also be used, can be consumed by using personal devices. But if you want to have the best experience, the best outcome for XR programs, then you need to use XR handsets. So one thing that you need to take into consideration is that these technologies brings also hardware with that. So which device I'm going to go for, where I'm going to store it, do I need some professional services in order to set up those devices? So you need to take into consideration also those elements when you do a pilot. We have got hundreds of clients. We have helped, the last number, it's over 2 million users in a corporate. And I show you some of our case studies, how our clients are using the authoring tool and the benefits that they get from this technology. I'm going to provide you here 4 examples, 3 or 4. Each of them, they are very different because I don't know from where you come from, which is your background. So I'm trying to kind of to address all the different markets. And the first one is Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola wanted to train the people that works in their plant, in their warehouse. And once we run this kind of procedure training in VR, health and safety, security, driver procedures, and so on and so forth, they found out that there was a 15% more of content retention than classrooms. Because what they did, they measure before and after the knowledge that those people had after X number of months. Of course, everything was digitally done, so they could practice as much as they wanted with zero risk, to be honest. So, you will never get injured, even if you make some stupid things. Everything is fully simulated, so therefore you don't have any risks. And people were much more efficient because they got the knowledge more, they practice over again, and when they did the job, they got it. They can do whatever they are asked to do. We also find out an 80% increase in engagement. People were far more engaged than a boring PowerPoint classroom health and safety training with their cup of coffee in their hand and trying, to wait that the trainer finished the slides so they can go back and maybe have a cigarette or something, right? Now in VR, you can do that. You cannot smoke in VR, you cannot drink in VR. In VR, it's you and the content, and you need to perform. You cannot sleep, you cannot close your eyes, because otherwise nothing happened there. And other type of benefits. If we move to another type of market, in this example here, it's more healthcare. So this training was to specifically for surgery in the surgery rooms. So instead of UCL hospitals doing training in their location, now they can do this remotely. So you don't have any more doctors coming all around the world to London, going through visa, going through travel expenses, blah, 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 to get upskills or get specialized in a specific surgery technique, which is all available, in UCL in London. Now they don't need to do that because they can attend a surgery room virtually, both asynchronous, so like a pre-recorded surgery, or live, because we can also stream VR in real time, pretty much like a Zoom in 360 degrees. So I can join that session, that surgery in VR from any location. And you can see here some of tremendous benefits that users, doctors, had by using VR for these programs. And then from a corporate point of view, in this instance, UCL, so as a business, I also received lots of benefits. I multiplied by 3 times the capacity that I can have in my classrooms. Because before, I could host just 5 people in a surgery room for hygiene conditions, procedures, and regulations. Now, instead of 5, I can have 15 in VR. And then, I don't need to spend more money to equip, to physically have those people, etc., etc. But the most important thing is that the second bullet point, this is what I like it. With VR surgery training, we reduced the risk of contamination by 100%. Why? Because we didn't have physical people in the surgery anymore. We didn't have the students there anymore. So it's all remotely. So we don't have that risk that they brought bacteria inside the surgery room. And these consequentially adds up all sorts of other benefits, such as reducing contamination and potentially death of patient people in a surgery. So again, you can see here how things can get very creative, if you know what I mean, right? We move now into another sort of type of training, which is soft skills. Again, how can I practice some of my soft skills? And PwC did that. I mean, I think we touched base before on this number. And as you can see here, again, 400 times more focused than e-learnings, because now you got a real person, you can talk to them. And whatever the content change, depending on what you say or what you do in real time, because you got the Gen AI engines applied to those machines. So it's not preset; it's on the fly, and then you can instruct, you can train these engines based on your company procedures. So it's not just content coming out of the web. You can train your Gen AI engine with your own content. So when the users interact with the XR environment, all the content that they get, it's based on your personal company content. And I think there's now one more. There we go. This is another more. Again, this is um, field workers. We have done some work with OpenReach on field engineers. This is a kind of mechanics on the road. Again, how you're going to simulate that fixing an engine out on the road when it's raining, when it's super cold, you don't perform at the same time as you do the training, excuse me, in a garage. So again, you simulate all these conditions, not the cold, of course. You could, if you want to, but in this instance, we didn't have any haptics devices, but we did have some dangerous scenario, such as you are in the middle of the road fixing a car engine, and then a truck pass over to you at 10 centimeters away from you. So we could simulate that kind of dangerous situations. So get the mechanics ready for that specific conditions on the road. XR, it's a really wide technology, and there are different levels of XR. This is how I categorize. So the XR entry level, or 1.0, it's basic experiences. So for example, in virtual reality, it's just a 360 image that you can look around, but you cannot walk. You can see it, the environment. It's like a Google Street View, in other words, right? Where with your mouse, you can move around, but in reality, you cannot grab an object. So it's really basic. In AR, we all know, QR code, we are very familiar with this. And now when we go to restaurants to get the menu or some games, right? Like Pokemon Go, right? In this instance. So this is the kind of entry level, and this technology, sometimes it's good enough for some clients. You don't need to do advanced stuff. You can stop there based on your requirements. However, if you are advanced in using this technology, or maybe you have done some experience with XR 1.0 and you want to move into the next level of experiences, then you got virtual reality, where actually you can move around freely, like in a video game, right? But also you can grab objects, you can expect those objects, etc., etc. With AR, instead, you can recognize, these devices can recognize your physical environment. So the digital content, you don't see just floating around, but actually you can put on top of your table, or actually you can put it down on the floor, because the digital content recognized the physical space where you are at. So that is the difference of XR 2.0. And then the last more advanced kind of adoption of this technology, it's what we called mixed reality or spatial computing, where you combine those two technologies, where in one sentence, in one scene, maybe you are in a VR environment, and in the next scene, you got your engine in front of you in your room where you needed to perform that physical practice, essentially, right? So this is an example, this slide, to don't tell you that one is better than another thing. No, I'm not trying to say that. What I'm saying is, depending on your level of maturity, as I say here, of this technology, you may want to stop on the first, on XR 1.0, or you may want to jump into a much more advanced experience using maybe the Apple Vision Pro. I give you some examples. So for XR 1.0, the VR environment, it's pretty much like this one. So you got a 360 image. In this instance, is a vessel where you got these interactive icons, and then you got pop-up images, augment with other content. You can do, you can answer questions, you can move around using some of those icons. You got the audio, but pretty much, as I said, it's a Google Street View type of experience. That is XR 1.0. Then, if you want to move to XR 2.0, an example, as I said, it's like a gaming environment where you got this environment here, and now you're moving inside a physical space. You are walking, you grab the object and take that object into a specific location to perform that task, essentially, right? So this is the second kind of level of XR. And then the third level is where you got 3D objects that you can interact with. You got also holograms in an AR modality, in a mixed reality, all combined with your physical space. Okay, so that is just a few examples of the three different typology of training. With that one, I kind of finished my few slides, on this topic. As you know, I kept it very generic to don't go into too much details. But as Tom said at the beginning of this discussion, if you got any questions, even technical, I got 20 years of experience in this field. I'm sure that I will have an answer for you.
Brilliant. And we do have some questions. So let's dive straight in. So fairly early on, we got a question from Dominic. Do you have a clear measure of who is applying the P&L? Is it the IT department, or are they more influential than, say, HR or L&D when you're discussing these things?
The entry point in an enterprise, it can be it can vary. Essentially. So we got the three different entry points. The first entry point, it can be L&D. So this is where we engage with the head of L&D or training managers, and we talk about this. The second entry point is actually transformation directors, which they constantly are looking for new technology in order to transform the operation of a corporate, to make it more efficient, cost effective. But then even if you talk with transformation people, then maybe the use case goes back to L&D. So, in return, it goes, from training. And the third entry point, it's innovation departments. So the innovation team always scouting, so what's going on over there. And once then they want a pilot, if it's not a remote collaboration use case, most likely it's going to be a training use case. And again, go back to L&D. So maybe the budget comes from transformation, right? But then always you need to have the blessing, let's say, from L&D in order to collect data and put together a business case that prove the ROI of this technology.
Brilliant. I think we've got a couple in from Dominic actually. He's very interested. So AI is predicted basically to be a colossal use of energy. What's your forecast for this to reduce or be less vulnerable to any energy or power shortages?
Gosh, you said Dominic, right?
Yes.
Dominic, this is a very political question, I would say, right? I mean, there are lots of debates there when they say that electric cars actually consume more than petrol gas, right? Because in order to create energy, maybe you create more CO2 rather than actually using petrol. The bottom line, Dominic, it's I'm not a political person. I'm not into that kind of you know sector of application. Who knows? Maybe they're right, maybe they're not, maybe they're wrong. The fundamental thing is that electric cars uh, will be the future, even potentially if it's going to end up consuming more energy. And now, if you apply this to any other devices, um, again, I think it's not under my control, so I don't know how to answer that except the fact that, look, I embrace technology and I use technology to help humanity and to help companies to have a better skilled persons to do a better job, to save lives, in high risk scenarios. So in my little world, I'm very proud that this technology is actually improving humanity. In a long term, that is beyond me, I'm afraid.
And also, one thing kind of related that I noticed on one of the slides with the Coca-Cola one, I think one of the benefits was a reduction in the carbon emissions of the training program, right? I think that's
Yes,
quite interesting.
yeah, because basically, in order to do some training, they also perform physical training, right? So, for example, one of the training was about truck drivers. So, what are the maneuvers that you have to do with that truck within a plant,
Mm.
right? In order to don't smash against another truck or smash with millions of bottles of Coca-Cola, etc., etc. Now, before that training was done with a real truck. So literally the engine was on, right? Now you don't have that anymore because everything now it's simulated in virtual reality. So that's how you reduce consumption of using training machines.
Absolutely. Really interesting stuff. And I think it's our last one from Dominic, I think. What are the units of measure to arrive at 3.75x multiple to be emotionally connected? So I think it's just about that one of the stats that you shared, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you for pointing out that because I'm a very curious person. I just don't get the numbers without understanding where those numbers come from, because people think that the numbers are unique. In reality, they're not. There is a lot of creative way how to read and manipulate numbers, if you know what I mean. But specifically on that, almost 4 times emotionally connected. I will share with you if here we go. You got my email here. If you drop me an email, I will share with you the whole research where is going to talk how they collected all this data, so you can see the details behind that number.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that. We've got a question from Sarah. Um, Sarah has asked, I know AR, VR, but only because I game. Is there anywhere Frank would recommend that I learn more about creating XR experiences other than sort of the Google search and YouTube videos and asking ChatGPT, which I think is where everyone starts now, right? And then we get led often in the wrong direction.
Yes, correct. There are lots of CPD courses out there now. You can enroll, there are some online, some provided by universities, but now more and more institutions are creating XR specialized content, again, to educate, to train, to upskills, reskills, whatever terms we want to use here, on these latest technologies as well. So yes, definitely, there are lots of courses out there.
Stuff. And Andreas has asked, do you think that this technology, XR authoring basically, is still too expensive for organizations that are not big corporates? So, for instance, not for profits, charities, educational institutions.
But look, I mean, as I said, we got 100 of clients, but we do have clients into charity as well. So for that specific market, there is two considerations to make. One is that for charities and education, the price of those authoring tools is different. So we do have price for that market, essentially. So it's much more approachable, affordable price. Secondly, it's again depending what you're trying to achieve with that. Because I give an example. In one, with a charity, unfortunately, I cannot mention the name because they told me that I don't have the sign off to mention the name, but I tell you their use case. I can tell you the use case. One of their use cases is to raise money. And before they went to these events, show a few pictures and says, look, we need your money because we need to help those people, right? Or a video, the kind of thing. What they did, they actually did a virtual reality experience of those people. So by watching that in VR, the people had such a extraordinary, I mean, so strong empathy with those people, they almost could feel the same that they were feeling, dirtiness, poorness, war, extension, because you got that physical presence in VR, that the empathy went out of the roof. And as a consequence of that, they were much more willing to open their wallet even bigger than they opened before. So after the fundraising campaign in VR, comparing it to not VR fundraising, they increased the, the money received by 20%. And let me tell you that 20%, it was a far, far more than what they spend in VR. So we are talking about millions more by using VR. So when you do these kind of things, it's, okay, I want to spend 20K, but that's 20K, it's a lot. Well, yeah, but if you get then 5 more millions, then it's nothing, isn't it?
So viewing it in that context is super important, right? It's like I don't think anyone's ever going to go, oh yes, VR, it's like the budget solution. But the fact that something is maybe not the cheapest option doesn't always mean it doesn't have huge value, right? I think that really struck me when you were talking about the medical applications. So I've been working with some clients in that space, and that scaling thing, like they're in a world where they're like, we can train 3 physicians a week. That's it, because physically that's what will fit in the room. The idea, if I could say you could now train 15, like that's commercially huge, but also in terms of there are now 15 surgeons that can go and save someone's life. Yeah, that's a huge impact to have.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, that's all the questions we've got come in. So if you do have any questions, now is the time to send them through. But in the meantime, I guess I would, more than anything, I'd like to kind of say thank you, Frank, for coming and sharing all of this. I think it's fascinating, the research insights, the use cases you've spoken about. I think it's got a lot of us thinking about kind of, if not our own organizations today, then certainly what's coming down the road. And as you were kind of say, that need to embrace that these things are here and that they are valuable. I think the speed of development in this technology has been quite fascinating. Um, Brilliant. I
Indeed.
think
Thank you so much, Tom, for having me, and thanks everyone for joining today's discussion.
thanks everyone. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.